What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Rambling Men Sports Podcast. As always, it's Shane Price and James Connolly, but a little bit different this week. One of our guests here is one of my friends from college, my good friend, Andrew Holmes. He's a West Virginia native, West Virginia fan, all things WVU, huge college hoops fans. He's going to be here talking to us.
Don't take too much claim to that, because that's not something to necessarily be too proud of.
But he's a huge hoops fan, so he's going to be on here to talk March Madness, kind of recap Selection Sunday. Andrew, what's going on?
Not much. I'm doing just fine, gentlemen. How about y'all selves?
Good to have you on, dude.
Yep, for real. Can't complain. It was supposed to be one of my other friends, Chaz, also joining us, but I have not heard from him in the last hour or so. Andrew was the only one who took it seriously. So it's just going to be him.
He's in the gym still.
He's probably, I agree. I think he's in the gym.
I'm sure his all 99% muscle of himself is in the gym working out right now.
Oh, Chaz. He's so easy to make fun of. But so our first topic here, selection show is a little bit different this year. Usually they kind of reveal. Yeah, it was terrible, but we can get into that in a little bit. But so what they usually do is they reveal each bracket, all four brackets, within the first hour or so, and they spend kind of 15 minutes on each one while they reveal it. This year, they were like, we're not going to do that. We're going to reveal all 68 teams in the first 10 minutes. I remember thinking to myself, there's no way they can screw this up. This is what people want, and they managed to do it anyway. Andrew, I want to get your thoughts on this.
I hated it because I was at work, but we were still watching it at work. It was super dead. And the bartender, we like March Madness. We're really March Madness fans. That's what we hated. Like, we were so used to the yearly suspense of, all right, you figure out the first four in, the last four out, all that stuff. You figure out where everybody's playing. And then this year, they just up and decided to name every team that makes the tournament. So before they even start talking about it, before they really get into everything, you already know who's missed out, who's not in it, and then you're already complaining about who got in and who shouldn't have been in before you even know who they play.
Yeah. I agree. And they went in alphabetical order, so the first team was Alabama. Just makes no sense. They usually.
I thought for a second I was watching the college football playoff because Alabama got in when they shouldn't have. So I was like, oh, okay.
That's another topic. That's another topic. But yeah, it was in alphabetical order. I mean, why can't they just show the top seed in the tournament first? Like the top four seeds. Show
because you have an idea of already who's going to be in that mix.
Exactly.
You don't really
just show those top four, and then if you want to do that, go in alphabetical order. I just thought it was terrible. Can we just once get each bracket within the first 10 minutes, see who's playing who, see who you're matched up with, see whose bracket you're in? It's not that hard.
The problem is, I think you got these companies like CBS and ESPN that do these things, and they think about ratings and bringing in people for ratings, and then they totally drop the ball on half this stuff, and it turns into something that's like worse than what it actually is.
Yeah. James, you got anything to add?
Yeah, it sounds like I actually didn't watch Selection Sunday yesterday, but Selection Sunday is always awesome because it's super suspenseful. Even if you're not a fan of the teams on the bubble, you want to find out who got in. It sounds like they took all the suspense out of it with you said they did it in alphabetical order?
That's not entirely true. They showed the automatic qualifiers first, the teams who won their conference tournament, but those were in alphabetical order. Then they went to all the, 30-some at-large bids, and they did that in alphabetical order. So
I'm not exaggerating. That's the worst way I could think to do that.
And one part that was hilarious.
If they had come up with a bad way to do Selection Sunday, that would be my plan.
One part that was hilarious. They had two different screens, and Greg Gumbel was on one side. I can't remember who the other guy is, but he's the other guy on TNT.
Is it Clark Kellogg?
Yes. No. Okay. Isn't he the black guy? He was the white guy that wears the bow ties.
Oh, Ernie Johnson?
Yes, that's who it is.
Ernie Johnson does it. Yeah, that's right. TNT dude, yeah.
But so they showed each side, and, West Virginia's dead last anyway because we're in the W's. So they wrapped up on Greg Gumbel's side, and he was in the T's. And he said, that'll do it for – it was like, that'll do it. And I was like, wait, hold on, what? Because they hadn't shown WVU yet. He was like, that'll do it for this side on the Ernie side. I was like, oh, thank God.
So that probably caused some type of mass confusion with people watching.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what? I didn't see us. And we were supposed to be one of the locks. But so anyway, Some of the recap. The top 4 seeds in the tournament are Virginia, who was the number 1 overall seed, Villanova, Kansas, Xavier. None of those were really surprising. Those were the top 4 seeds. But there was some controversy on the bubble. So, Andrew, I'm curious, which teams did you think were the biggest snubs that got left out?
Well, I think Oklahoma State should have got in. Not trying to sound like a Big 12 homer, because you can ask Shane, I am not conference homer by any means. I really don't root for anybody outside of WVU. Oklahoma State got snubbed. I think Middle Tennessee State got snubbed. I mean, I know they had 7 losses, but I thought they had a shot to be in it.
I've always been, if you're a mid-major, you got to win your conference tournament. Yeah,
it is true. But the sad thing is, I do think teams like, which it doesn't change the fact they didn't win their conference, teams like Middle Tennessee State, all that stuff, they can compete. They're in the bubble. St. Mary's is 28-5, but also they're in a terrible conference too.
Yeah, I heard their schedule was awful.
So it's like every year I got to hear about St. Mary's and Gonzaga, and Gonzaga's obviously made it 19 years in a row. St. Mary's is always on that bubble. They're either in or out, on the bubble every year. But the problem is, I do think people can bring up BPI or all these different things. Oklahoma State has a heck of a resume, especially in the last 2 months, and they didn't get in.
I'm looking at it right now. They had an 88 RPI. They were 56th in the Ken Pomeroy Power Rankings, and they were 58th in the BPI. I really had no problem with them being left out. They kind of really just got hot the last month or so. But they did beat some good teams. They're 8-11 against tournament teams.
They're sub 500 in conference play.
Yeah. A lot of teams got in that are sub 500.
I think it's kind of convenient, though, that Louisville, Oklahoma State, and USC all got left out, and they just happen to be under FBI investigation with all this stuff. I'm not trying to sound like some conspiracy theorist, but it's cute that all 3 of them got left out, and they just happen to be 3 of the 5 big teams named. Obviously, Auburn's still in the tournament, so yeah.
And Alabama, Kentucky. There's a lot of teams linked to that scandal. But they made the tournament. Mine was James. Actually, do you have anyone that was a big snub?
I was going to say Oklahoma State as well, even though, like I said, I didn't really have a big problem with them not getting in. They had pretty much a pretty comparable resume to OU, but OU has a player that more people are going to tune in to watch. Yeah. So,
and that's my biggest frustration with them not getting in, and I will, I will talk more about that whenever we get to the other one. But it has something to do with another team getting in and them not getting in. That's my biggest frustration.
I agree, and I'm 99% sure they did it because of Trae Young. Whether that's fair or not, I do believe that's why they did it. And I said USC as well. I think if you come, second in any Power 5 conference, I think you deserve to be in the tournament over these, schools that I've never heard of. Just to be honest, I think they'd be a little bit more. I think USC would be a little bit more competitive than some of these, other teams. But
they were my team. I said same as you guys. I said USC, Louisville, and Oklahoma State were probably the 3 biggest snubs. But USC, I don't know how they didn't get in. They're 35 RPI, 40th in Ken Pomeroy's Power Rankings, and 43rd in ESPN BPI. They were 2-7 though against tournament teams. Maybe that's what held them back. Maybe it is this FBI scandal. Who knows?
USC kind of reminds me of SMU from a few years ago when SMU was finished the season ranked in the top 25, had a solid resume and didn't get in.
Was that who was the head coach? He coached in the NBA for SMU.
Larry Brown.
Larry Brown.
Yeah, yes. Larry Brown. The guy that couldn't control Allen Iverson. Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're all in agreement. Those were. You got something, James?
No, I was gonna say what team do you think shouldn't have made the tournament then?
Oklahoma and Syracuse. Someone tell me why Syracuse got in the tournament outside of Jim Boeheim not being their name and their name not being Syracuse. Because that's the only reason. I don't even know who they beat in the ACC this year because I don't even recall them beating anybody significant. Unless I'm just.
I don't think I can name a player on Syracuse.
I can give you Jim Boeheim, but. Yeah, I'm looking at it.
I feel like they want old Jim to stay in the tournament as long as he can until he retires because he's Jim Boeheim. He's been there for 1,000 years.
Same thing happened a few years ago, though, and Syracuse made the Final Four. They got in when no one thought they would.
That is true.
Team, but they have a couple guys that are playing in the NBA that was on that team.
Yeah.
That's true.
But yeah, I would probably say Oklahoma just because they're 49th in RPI, 47th in Ken Pomeroy's rankings, 42nd in BPI. 6-9 versus tournament teams, and finished the year 4-11. I get they have Trae Young
terrible.
and they're well coached, but
It's Trae Young.
yeah, it's Trae
Trae
Young.
Young.
And I don't get why
Watch him play. I don't blame him.
I don't get why
I like
Arizona
what
State made it
former
either.
Xavier Musketeer Jordan Crawford said yesterday when he was like, "We all know why Oklahoma got in. They just need to say it out loud."
Yeah, exactly. But
It's
yeah,
true.
another team I don't get is Arizona State.
Yeah.
They've
At
been
least they gotta
terrible
play
since
in
the
to
new
go.
year.
At least they have to play Syracuse
Yeah.
to get in the tournament.
Yeah.
Arizona State's one of those weird teams. They're like Oklahoma. They started off super good, playing absolutely nobody really, and then they fell off a cliff because they got into conference play.
But they're worse in these power indexes than Oklahoma is in every category. They're 66th in RPI. They're 45th in Ken Pomeroy's rankings, and 44th in BPI, and finished the year 8-11. So it's a little bit better than Oklahoma, but I don't really understand that.
There's 5 power teams that got in that I think got in because they wanted to put as many Power 5 teams they could in. And that is Oklahoma, Syracuse, Arizona State, NC State, and Florida State. Like, NC State, I don't know. Florida State, yeah, they started off really well. Alabama and Florida State are like 2 teams, and Oklahoma, 3 teams that I saw at the beginning of the year start off really hot, top 25, and then they started losing a lot of games in conference play, and all of a sudden, it's almost like the people that put them in are thinking about November and December instead of what have you done recently?
I mean,
which I guess is okay, but
I don't know. I've always been on the side. I think I'd rather have a hot team late than a team who was hot, in November and December.
True.
Exactly. UConn from 2014 is a prime example.
Yeah. I've never seen a 7 seed win the tournament before, and they did that year. But yeah, you made a good point, Andrew. Think about Alabama, and that was actually one of the teams I thought was overseeded, but that's a different topic. We can get into it. It don't matter. But yeah, on to teams that were probably overseeded in this tournament. I think Alabama's one of them. The 42nd in RPI, 51st in Ken Pomeroy, and 54th in the BPI. They lost 6 of their last 8 games. They do have Colin Sexton, who I said on Twitter I would rather have before Trae Young.
Any day of the week and twice on Sundays. Me too.
But they got a 9 seed. I don't really understand that. Everywhere I saw, they were an 11 seed in one of those playing games.
Yeah, you don't see too many 14, 15 loss teams that don't play in a play-in game, no matter what their name is.
Yeah. Who do you think was also overseeded?
Texas Tech.
Yeah, that was my third.
I'm not trying to sound like biased and compare us to Texas Tech, but I'm like, I could, and I don't necessarily understand. I mean, I guess Xavier deserves the number 1 seed. Yeah, sure, but I figured they might get a 2 seed, but it's whatever.
Yeah, Texas Tech. I never understood when the rankings came or when the seeding came in, and I mean, this is the next topic, but when we got a 5 seed, I was like, whoa. Everywhere I saw, we were a 4 seed. And then Texas Tech came in as a 3 seed. I'm like, we just beat them twice. Not just, and like we said in the pre-show, not just twice in the last 2 weeks.
That's what, that's kind of like, not to go back to the last topic, but Oklahoma State beat Kansas twice. They beat us in Morgantown, and they beat Oklahoma. It's like, but you know what? No. Nah, y'all ain't in.
They got some good wins. And I would rather have them because they finished the year hot, like I said. Yeah. I'd rather have that. James, what about you? Anyone you thought was overseeded?
There's a couple teams. Tennessee was one. I kind of mentioned that earlier. I do.
They look good. I watched some of the SEC tournament. They look good. I mean, they look like a Sweet 16 team.
Team in the SEC isn't a 3 seed to me. Just, and that's just me. It's a football conference. They don't play basketball.
I will say, I think this year the SEC was definitely better than what they've been. Because usually the past 10 years, it's been Kentucky and everybody else. And then every now and then you got a Tennessee or a Florida that has a solid team, but they're not that. But this year the SEC was pretty deep, I thought.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it was.
And I also threw Kansas in there. In my opinion, I don't think they're a 1 seed. I do think they're a 2 seed. So maybe that's nitpicking, saying they're overseeded. But I think Duke was the number 1 seed in that bracket.
Michigan
I
State
honestly didn't compare their resumes. Maybe they got it because of the resume, but I'm talking from a talent perspective. I don't think they should be a number one seed. I really don't.
I think what they did with that was they looked at Duke not winning the ACC championship, and they saw Kansas winning the.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. I do think that was the flip flop there, because you couldn't have told me Duke wasn't going to be a number one seed in this tournament, and then came out and it wasn't. So that's definitely a team that I thought, two teams that I thought were overseeded. We're going to get to a team that I think's underseeded, and that's West Virginia.
We already said that kind of.
First of all, we beat the number one team in the country. One of the only two teams to do that. Number two,
according to ESPN, we didn't, though, because they still float around that fact that Virginia hasn't lost to a top 25 team and they haven't lost on the road. Well, they need to talk about conference, because they came into Morgantown and took this L. I watched it with my own eyes. You guys watched it with your own eyes.
Now, maybe they're trying to refer to they weren't the number one team when they came to Morgantown, but I don't know how they can dispute that now.
Listen, like I said, we beat the number one team in the country. We played in arguably the best conference in the country and just beat each other up the whole time. We went on a really bad skid there for about a month. But listen, we have two guards that can score, one that can lock down on defense. We have Kanate down low, getting boards, slamming it home. He looks unstoppable on the board. He's going to
confident Kanate is one of the scariest players in college.
He's going to bully these small school kids that
I've been saying this all year. If he were 2 inches taller, I think he'd have NBA lottery all over him.
I agree. He we're going to play great defense. It's hard to prepare for the press. I want a quick turnaround like that, a day or two turnaround. We have a top 5 coach in this tournament. I don't care what anyone says, because we have a top 5 coach in the country.
My president.
You know what? Absolutely. Bob Huggins is. He's an amazing coach. He might be a top 3 or 4 coach in this entire tournament.
That's a good question. Which coaches would you take before Bob Huggins?
Izzo. I'd take Tom Izzo over any other coach.
I was going to say Kay and Izzo.
There's not a lot.
That might be it, bro.
When I think of Mark and I think of coaches, the first thing that comes to my mind is Izzo. I know Coach K's good. I know Roy Williams is good. But Izzo gets the most out of his guys in March, I think.
That's true.
More than any other
I think
team.
He's got more Final Fours than anybody else.
That would take me a second, but he's top 5 in this tournament.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit of a stretch, but honest to goodness.
It's not.
I don't know who else I would take. I'll say Roy Williams just because he's won a title.
Even then, he's still at 4.
Yeah.
Maybe Boeheim?
No, not anymore. I think he's done.
Yeah, Boeheim's lost a step. I mean,
he's won a ton of games, but he hasn't. What have you done for me lately?
Jay Wright is a pretty good coach.
Yeah,
Jay Wright's fresh to death too.
Yeah,
he's good.
Best looking coach at least.
That's a smooth.
His suit game is nice.
That's a smooth dude. Absolutely.
Andrew, what other teams did you think were underseeded?
Well,
I got one right off the top of my head. It's the head coach you just said.
Well, yeah, Izzo.
Yeah,
the thing is,
Michigan State.
Like I told y'all, I mean, I think it's like the highest rated 3 seed I've ever seen in my life.
They're 29-4, man.
I think losing to Michigan in the Big Ten tournament kind of did that in for them of getting a 2nd seed, because they lost really early for Michigan State standards in the Big Ten tournament. But I still think they're better than Purdue. I mean, I know Purdue got the 2 seed, but I'd take Michigan State over Purdue.
Yeah, and Michigan State beat Purdue. I mean...
Yeah. I think Michigan State has the biggest X factor in the whole tournament in Miles Bridges. I think he's the most talented player Izzo's ever had since at least his 2000 national championship team. I think Miles Bridges was a lottery pick last year, and he's back this year, so I could see him going off in the tournament.
Yeah, I'm not picking. Spoiler alert! I'm not going to pick Kansas to win that bracket, and I'm having a hard time choosing between Michigan State and Duke right now.
Well, Sparty was my pick going into the tournament to win it all. Like, they're still my favorite, I think. Obviously, I'd love to see West Virginia win it all, but, like, I think Izzo with Bridges and Jaren Jackson and that backcourt is good enough to beat Duke and Kansas. Out of those 3, I don't think Duke can get past Kansas and Michigan State, and I don't think Kansas can get back Michigan State or Duke. Like, I think Michigan State, though, could beat those 2 teams.
Kansas, number one, they're not going to shoot as well as they did against us in the Big 12 championship.
It's always us, too. It's always us that teams have these streaky shoot games where they can just knock off 15 threes in a game.
I was thinking my mom texted me after the game and said, how she was disappointed we lost. I was like, that was like the Final Four game against Duke. Everything they were throwing up was going in.
Like Shire and Singler was just chucking it up and it was going in.
Yeah.
They were making everything that game.
Yeah, and that was tough. I mean, and it's not like we weren't defending them. It's not like we were leaving them wide open. We were contesting shots. Yeah. I remember
Monte
one.
Graham's coming down and just hesitate, pull up in Javon's face. There's nothing you can do about it.
I remember one. It was in the corner. I think it was Mikhailuk, shot in the corner, and Kanate defended him like straight up as high and as he could get stretched, and like it rattled in and out. I was like, golly, if that's the day they're gonna have, but shooting the ball, and that's barely a miss when we have our biggest guy trying to defend them, it's gonna be a long day. Yep. So now we're going to try to get into some of the we kind of have already done this, but we're going to get into the bracket preview. First of all, are you guys planning on watching any of the first 4 games? You are.
I'll be at work tomorrow, unless somebody can, so yeah, I plan on watching it at work. Well, it'll probably be dead, so yeah. I'll watch it. I'm definitely not, tuning in for Syracuse and Arizona State barn burner, but it'll be on TV, so I'll watch it because it's March.
I'm not sure I've ever watched the first 4 game. The Arizona State and Syracuse game is kind of appealing just because it's a Power 5 game. But St. Bonaventure, UCLA, I don't care. NC Central's Texas Southern, I don't care. LIU, Brooklyn, and Radford, I don't care. So, yeah, I guess I'll probably tune in to watch Arizona State and Syracuse. But so, Andrew, what number 1 seed do you think has the best chance to win it all?
Villanova, if they're shooting lights out.
That's who I said, Villanova.
I mean, everybody talks about us running into them. I hope we don't. I hope if we happen to run into Villanova, I hope they're knocked out because there's no way we can outshoot them.
And they shoot the 3 very well. And
I think it's funny because the Villanova teams, before they won the title 2 years ago, I've always used to choking with even those Scotty Reynolds teams and all that. Like, they're going to choke. They're going to find a way to choke. It's different now with some of these guys he's got.
And they still got an early
Brunson
exit last
and all
year.
These dudes, they're better. Like, they're senior loaded, upperclassmen loaded at least. They won a title 2 years ago, so they still have that, experience. But Villanova scares me the most out of all the 1 seeds.
James, what about you?
I said Virginia. Just because they play the best defense, they play in the ACC. That's a tough conference. They only lose 2 games in. Defense matters in these tournaments.
Virginia's so frustrating. I'm not picking them to go very far. This happens it feels like it happens every year with Virginia, and
I respect Tony Bennett as a coach.
Yeah.
I think he's a heck of a coach. I think Virginia is always a solid team, but this whole 1950s ball of run the clock out and run offense. Yeah, you got to run offense in basketball, but that little offense they like to run, which is boring as it is, they're very fundamentally sound. They're always one of the most fundamentally sound teams in the country. But I'm sorry, when you run into all these athletes that are adrenaline loaded, it's March. That I could see them losing early just because the way they run their offense.
I'd be very intrigued.
Yep. They don't have Brogdon. That was a big guy they had the past few years in their tournament.
I'd be very intrigued to see them in a Sweet 16 matchup with Kentucky.
I'd like Kentucky in that one, too.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Arizona, too. Even that 4-5 matchup, if they get to the second round, Kentucky, Arizona, I don't know who I'm going to pick.
But the thing about Arizona is if Ayton gets double-teamed and handled, I think anybody can beat them because I think Alonzo Trier is vastly overrated. I think the rest of their team is overrated. I think Sean Miller's an overrated coach, Mr. I can't get to the Final Four.
I think he's a good coach, but yeah, he hasn't been able to – he has all the talent in the world at Arizona. He can't get very far.
He's had people realize the athletes, the players he's had the past 5 years, and there's been times they should have been locked to win the national championship possibly.
Two of them, Stanley Johnson and who was the other guy before him?
They had that Rhonda Hollis Jefferson dude who was really good.
Aaron Gordon. Yeah, but I agree with you, Andrew. I think Villanova is the most likely 1 seed. Like you said, I can't buy into Virginia with that defense and the way they play. Villanova is well coached. They're experienced. They're talented. They're great offensively. I mean, they got all the pieces, I think, to get it done. I don't know a whole lot about Xavier, and like I said, I'm not picking Kansas. They're not deep, and they're not very big. But so what about
especially if they got Azubuike at the free throw line at the end of the game?
Yeah, especially that. What about a 2 seed?
Duke.
Yeah, same here, Duke. When you got Coach K, I think that's the obvious one. The rest of the 2 seeds were kind of weak, in my opinion. Not weak, but none that really stood out. Cincinnati, Purdue. Who's the one?
Cincinnati is the most overrated team in the tournament. Crone, I don't care if he's a Huggins prodigy. He's a explicit. There's a lot of words I like to call him, but I think every year Cincinnati, they're in the AAC, so yeah, it's a tougher conference now that Wichita and all that's in it. But I feel like the past 5 years, it's Cincinnati really, really good record and just stinks up the joint because they don't have anybody that really can compete with some of these other schools.
Who's the 2 seed in? Who's the 2 seed in Xavier's region? I can't even remember.
Oh, it might. No, it's not Cincinnati. There's no way they would have done that.
Cincinnati's in Virginia. Purdue is
North Carolina.
It is North Carolina.
And I don't really like North Carolina.
But the thing about Carolina is, I don't know if they can repeat.
Yeah.
Because Theo Pinson's good. Luke Mail is nice. And Joel Berry's good. But I don't know if that's good enough to repeat the national championship for them.
Yeah. What about a 3 seed?
MSU.
Best
coach.
I mean, that's my national championship pick necessarily. So.
I consider them the 5th 1 seed, and they're a fucking 3 seed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unreal. Well coached. They got a lot of size. I mean, I really like them. 4 seed.
I wasn't in love with any of them. I said Arizona because I felt that their bracket was navigatable, but I honestly see no chance of any of the 4 seeds winning anything.
I can't see a 4 seed winning the national championship with this bracket.
Exactly.
I could see a couple 5 seeds winning the national championship.
I like Gonzaga more than people, I guess. I mean, they're well coached. They're big. They're great offensively and defensively. What were you saying, Andrew?
I'm insane, but I really think Greensboro is going to beat Gonzaga. Every year I got to hear about how Gonzaga it's their year. It's their year. They finally make the national championship last year, and they lose their 2 best players, and they play in a terrible conference. And it's like, Gonzaga can make a run again. And I'm like, well,
I honestly
make a run this year, and then my Gonzaga biases will be, I won't be biased against Gonzaga anymore. And I'm not holding a grudge because me and Mom went there my senior year of high school and went to Pittsburgh and watched them annihilate us by 30 points.
You said, we were texting about this last night. I thought you were kidding. You said, I'm going to pick UNC Greensboro to pick Gonzaga, LOL. I thought you were kidding with that LOL.
No, they're probably going to beat Greensboro, but as of now, in all my brackets, I got Greensboro beating them. That 13-4 matchup right there. Mark Few can kick rocks.
Moving on. What about which number 1 seed do you think is the most vulnerable?
Virginia.
Really? Expand on that.
Yeah, I could easily see Virginia losing just because of their offense they run, and they don't. If they're acting like Ray Guy is their best player, they're in trouble right there. Because he's a good shooter, but if they're relying on him to be Mr. March for them, there ain't no more Brogdon. Okay, Virginia, I think, is the most overrated 1 seed I think I've ever seen. I know they're 30-2. They beat Duke at Duke, which Duke is extremely overrated this year, which they shouldn't be because of how good they are on paper. But I'm not buying into Virginia at all.
Yeah, I agree. When they came to Morgantown, Kyle Guy was ice cold most of the game, and we were.
I said Ray Guy. That was a punter in NFL. My bad.
Did I say Ray Guy?
I think I said Ray Guy. That's terrible. Sorry.
Kyle Guy, I'm pretty sure is his name.
Because he is. That's all he is on Virginia. He's just a guy. That's all he is. He's just some guy from Virginia that, everybody's like, oh, he could shoot.
Yeah, but he came into Morgantown. He was cold. The team did not look good. And then they made it a game once he got hot in the second half. But, yeah, if he's cold, I just don't think that team's going to get it done. What about you, James?
I said Kansas. I just think Kansas doesn't look as good as usual. Little banged up right now. I know they just won the Big 12 tournament, which is impressive, but I don't know.
Kansas will go as far as Devontae Graham can take him. Mr. I've been in college for 10 years, which I know Javon Carter has too. But, I think Kansas, it depends on how how they're shooting. Honestly, they're one of those teams
that's just a tough bracket. I don't know.
That is a tough bracket.
Out of that bracket, I just do.
So I'm glad that we all kind of have some parity here. I said Xavier. Like you with Gonzaga, Andrew, I see Xavier as just one of those teams where they hype them up every year. Them and Wichita State, they hype up every year. Like Wichita State made one great run 5 years ago. They've made it past the first weekend one time since. And then Xavier got to the Elite Eight last year, but they made a couple Sweet 16s with their coach, but they have an early exit. I don't see it. They have an early exit just about every year.
I feel like Xavier really hasn't had that good of a team that could compete in March since the Jordan Crawford team like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And
was that when we played them in the Sweet 16?
Huh?
Was that when we played them in the Sweet 16?
No, that was like 2008 when they had two guys that I can't even remember their names that just happened to go off the last 5 minutes. Yeah. And Wellington Smith couldn't guard anybody for something.
That was tough. That was a tough one. What about any 2 seeds you think are the most vulnerable?
Purdue.
Cincinnati. Played in shitty conference. They lost to every good team they played. If you look at I looked at their schedule. Every time they played somebody good, they lost.
Yeah, I don't even want to disregard Purdue like that. I forgot Cincinnati. Yeah, Cincinnati.
I'm giving
I just
Cincinnati.
ranted about Cincinnati 5 minutes ago too. Like, yeah, I don't see Cincinnati doing anything. I got Texas beating them. I think. Yeah, I got to look at that.
I'm giving,
the same bracket.
I guess, Cincinnati more credit. I said Purdue. They didn't finish the year on the best note. They were 6-4. I think I read they were 6-4 in their last 10 games. They were runner-up in the Big Ten tournament. That's another team. They got what it takes. They should probably get to the Sweet 16, but they can never really get farther than that. So I don't know. What about 3 seeds?
I said Tennessee.
Really?
I explained earlier. I think they're just a little overseeded. Definitely a good team, like he said. SEC is a much improved conference this year, but not really buying them at 3. Thinking they're more in the 5 to 6 range. I don't think they're a better team than us. Put it that way.
They looked solid in the SEC tournament. And they don't have
could beat Tennessee handily.
Oh, I think we could too. And it's not like they have a scrub for a head coach. Rick Barnes has plenty of experience. So I don't really know. That's one team that's a wild card. I don't really know what to expect. They might get bounced early, but they could also, who knows, get to the Final Four. That's really a wild card. Andrew, what about you?
I think Texas Tech. I understand Tennessee. It's been a minute since they've been in the tournament. They got in it a couple of years ago, I think. Was they in there last year? But the thing about Texas Tech, all these guys are inexperienced, I think, right? When it comes to tournament time, when it comes to like a deep run in the tournament.
They haven't made the tournament for
I like
2
their
years.
coach. I think he has turned a program that was terrible, a big dumpster fire around, but I don't see them this year.
You forget he inherited Tubby Smith's program, who I think is the better coach, but yeah, they haven't made the tournament since Tubby Smith left.
Lose his job to Penny Hardaway.
Yeah. But yeah, I said the same thing. Texas Tech, mostly I think they rely too much on their defense. They do have a senior guard, Keenan Evans, who is a good player. But they do have a tough draw with Florida as a 6 seed. I think that's I didn't mention them, but I think that's an underseeded team, a lot of athletes.
There's Nichols, baby.
Yeah.
His assistant coach.
I forgot he was down there.
Is going to lead them to the promised land.
But yeah, Texas Tech, they're like we said, they're overseeded. I could see them getting bounced in the second round, maybe, to Florida. But what about 4 seeds?
Wichita State, like you said, overrated. I feel like they're still coasting off fumes from like so long ago. Like 5 years ago is over an entire class. Like, you know what I mean? Like, give it up.
I think the thing about Wichita is I do think they have some athletic bigs that for a lot of Power 5 teams, it would be tough to deal with. That's why I don't think Marshall can beat them because, even Marshall shooting lights out, I think their bigs are way too athletic. But I would say Wichita is probably the most overrated 4 seed.
And
Arizona, honestly, still, because they got Ayton. Everybody's on Trier and all that, but, I don't know. The Pac-12 was terrible this year as a whole, I thought.
Wichita State, I feel very confident. I told my parents, now that I say this, we're probably going to lose. But not my parents. I told my dad and my brother, I've never felt this confident about West Virginia making a Sweet 16 in a long time.
Well, I felt pretty confident last year when I saw our draw.
I didn't feel good about Notre Dame. I picked us to win, but I did not feel good about playing them. And then I didn't feel great about it last year. The last time we made the Sweet 16, we played Buffalo and Maryland. I was a little confident, but I didn't really.
I was at that Buffalo game too. That was very fun to go.
I didn't know a ton about Buffalo, but they were really hyping them up. And Maryland was an underseeded team, so they worried me a little bit. But since Press Virginia, I feel really confident. Murray State, the more I read about them, I'm just not sure about.
And I think the difference between our first round matchup with Murray State this year and 2 years ago with Stephen F. Austin is we didn't have anybody that really on our team that matched up with Thomas Walkup, and that's why he did everything he wanted to. This year, Murray State's best player is their point guard, but we got this Javon Carter dude who I think will keep him in check.
Yeah. But so my 4 seed, I don't dislike Wichita State. They do have a good coach. They do have some talent there. But I said Auburn. They haven't been the same team.
Yeah.
They haven't been the same team since I have his name here, but I don't know how to pronounce it. And Fernie McLemore got hurt. They've dropped 4 of their last 6 games. I thought they were going to be a 3 seed, but they ended up being a 4 seed, which makes sense. But they might make the top half of Kansas's bracket was really weak in my opinion. So they might make the Sweet 16, but I don't know.
Bruce Pearl teams, you just don't know because I've seen him have tons of talent at Tennessee with Curtis Lofton and all these guys, and he couldn't do anything with them. Scotty Hobson. So, I mean, it's the same thing with Auburn, I think. I mean, they let Alabama annihilate them in the SEC tournament, and they shouldn't have let Alabama beat them like that, especially for a rivalry.
Wasn't your buddy talking about that? I said that they were going to lose to Kentucky in the finals, but they ended up getting smoked by Alabama.
Oh, you're talking to me? I think so, yeah. But you make a good point with Bruce Pearl. You really don't know. He's a wild card. He's either get to like the Sweet 16, or like I remember at first
first round exit. Sometimes.
Yeah, I always thought he was a good coach, but he'd always get eliminated in like the Sweet 16 or the round of 32, and then like the one time I counted him out, he makes the Elite Eight, almost makes the Final Four in 2010. So you really don't know with him what he's going to do.
Scotty Hobson and Wayne Chisholm.
I remember Chisholm.
Chisholm, man, he was my dude.
But what team that is a 5 seed or lower do you think can make a deep run? Let's exclude the Mountaineers. Let's try to think.
I honestly, that wasn't a biased pick.
I know.
That was a legitimate pick.
I think even though they got blasted on their senior night, I still think Rhode Island has got the stuff. I mean, they almost made the Final Four last year, and I had them in my Final Four. It doesn't help that on their senior night home court, they let St. Joe's destroy them, but they got them back in the tournament. And I've been watching New Mexico State as a 12 seed. They ain't going to make no Final Four, but they're going to beat some people. I think they beat Clemson, and then I think they win their next matchup too. So those are just 2 lower seeds.
Yeah.
Rhode Island's a 7, New Mexico State's a 12.
I'm glad you said that because I didn't go very far. I went to an 8 seed, and that's kind of where I cut it off. But yeah, I'm glad you made that point. James, what about you?
Because most years I don't think a 10 seed or lower or higher can do this, but when it's one of these years where you just don't know, I mean, this could be 2011 all over again when VCU makes the Final Four. You know, Butler makes the Final Four 2 years, or like it could be something like that.
James, what about you?
This might be taking the easy way out, but I'm gonna throw Kentucky out there. You know, not an overly impressive season, but they always have the talent, they have the coaching. You know, who's to say they can't string together a nice little run at the end of the season? So
they made the Final Four. Most people wasn't high on that Kentucky team. That
you did. You picked them to make the Final Four, Andrew. I'm pretty sure.
But the thing about Kentucky, it's weird because like there's teams that Calipari has where he gets. People have this misconception about Calipari that every year Kentucky's world beaters, but like not every recruiting class he gets is the best. Like I still think the John Wall team he had was the best team he's ever had, and WVU beat him. But that's just my opinion. So you never know with his teams. They could live up to their recruiting expectations, but a lot of his Final Four teams, they always have a junior or senior somewhere in the mix that
Yeah.
that's been there that never actually made the jump to the league that helps them when it comes to this time of year.
But yeah, I agree. We did say we're going to leave out West Virginia, but those were my top two teams, Kentucky and West Virginia. Obviously, Kentucky's got a ton of talent. They're well coached. As for us, we got senior guards with a lot of experience. We're well coached. We have a tricky style of play that might mess some teams up. But outside of those, I got Florida, ton of athletes and tournament experience.
Florida's very athletic.
Yeah. TCU, mostly just because they shoot very well. They shoot 49% from the field, 40% from three, and they're well coached. I have Arkansas thrown in there. Senior guards, they've won 8 of their last 11, and I think Mike Anderson's a decent coach. And then last team I had is Virginia Tech. They shoot the ball well, and I like Buzz Williams.
Virginia Tech and Alabama is a very interesting first-round match because I don't really know who's going to win that game. Because, people.
You're going with Alabama in that game?
I mean, Avery Johnson took my Mavericks to the finals one year, so it's not the thing I'm saying. Now he's coaching Bama. Colin Sexton is a beast, and if he can get those guys around him to play well, I think it's really a coin flip who wins that matchup between Virginia Tech and Alabama, because I don't really know who can win that game.
I don't either. My tiebreaker is pretty much the better coach, and I think Virginia Tech has that with Buzz Williams.
Yeah, well, I wish evil upon Buzz Williams.
I don't like him. I do think he's a good coach, though.
Well, anytime I think of him, I still think of him dancing on the Flying W, so It still irks me a little bit.
Oh, yeah, that pisses me off. So we kind of got into this a little bit, but what upsets do you got into this more, Andrew, than me and James did. What upsets do you like in the first round?
Not a popular one that I don't necessarily see happening, but people don't understand. Like I could see it happening. I honestly think Lipscomb could beat North Carolina if they're shooting lights out. I've watched a lot of their games in their conference tournament.
15 over a 2.
They let Florida Gulf Coast come back and almost beat them. But there were stretches in those Lipscomb games where I'd see them make 3, 4, 5, 6 threes in a row, which I know it's a shooting team, but I don't know much about Lipscomb. I can't name a single player, but if you're shooting like that this time of year, you can beat anybody.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yep. Anybody else?
I had 3 upsets. I like you said, I do think Providence is a little bit underrated. The squad I had them beating Texas A&M.
They came back on Xavier in their conference championship game.
Exactly.
Xavier had them on the ropes at halftime, and they came back.
Exactly. Yep. Providence is a good team. I have, like I said, I have Alabama beating Virginia Tech. Sometimes when you just go down the bracket, you just got to feel them out.
Because you know not every high seed is going to win. That's the beauty about March Madness.
It's not. There's no sign.
There's going to be a Mercer Duke happen somewhere in there, and
exactly.
And you try to. That's why I'm thinking. I try to think out of the box, like Middle Tennessee State and Michigan State a couple years ago, things like that. I try to think. Right now, I got New Mexico State beating Clemson and then winning their second game. I got New Mexico State in my Sweet 16. So
that's a very underrated team. It's funny you mentioned that. I don't know how you guys do it, but I usually, when I'm picking my bracket, I go with odds. So usually, there's always a 5 seed that loses, maybe sometimes 2 every year.
Sometimes a 4 and 13.
And sometimes a 4, sometimes a 3, and then there's another one. I usually pick an 11 over a 6, and I get in trouble with that every year, but
sometimes you just got to go gut, Shane.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think what people don't understand about these teams like New Mexico State and things like that, like BYU from a few years ago with Jimmer. I think a lot of these teams, they get these players, they're very upperclassmen loaded, and these are guys that didn't get recruited by the big Pac-12 schools, but they were West Coast guys that are pretty good. They're talented. They're talented enough to play at UCLA, USC, all these things. They don't get recruited by the time they're juniors and seniors at places like New Mexico State and other Mountain West schools. They're just as good enough as those other guys to make a run in a tournament. Like a team like New Mexico State, if you put them in the Pac-12 this year, I think they finish top, 5 for sure. I think they're better than a lot of Pac-12 teams. I think they're better than a couple Big 12 teams, and I think they're better than a lot of Big 10 teams.
Absolutely. That's why a lot of these, lower seeded schools, some schools that you never heard of, they might be starting 4 seniors and a junior.
Yep.
And, they've been playing together for 4 years. They know each other's every move, and they play really well together. And you might be playing a really talented team, but they're starting 3 freshmen, a sophomore, and a junior. And it's like, sometimes fundamental, team basketball beats athleticism. Actually, in fact, a lot of times.
Wisconsin, Kentucky, 2015.
Exactly. The Frank the Tank team. That was my boy in that tournament. I actually was really sad they ended up losing to Duke in the finals. I wanted them to win that game pretty bad. He's a pretty terrible NBA player though. I'm not gonna lie.
Great.
No. Anyway,
but
I want to hear your Final Four, both of you.
Well, I haven't given my upset. My bad. That's fine. We're all in agreement. I have New Mexico State over Clemson right now. I don't really know a ton about Clemson, but New Mexico State, they're getting a lot of hype right now. But I have 3 here. One is Loyola Chicago over Miami. I looked it up. Loyola Chicago actually shoots the ball very well and just might be a hard team for Miami to match shooting-wise. Who knows? And then I don't know if this is an upset. I guess it is since you had Alabama over Virginia Tech, but I said Oklahoma over Nevada. I'm probably not going to pick that game or pick Oklahoma to win, but I think we need to watch out that even though Oklahoma hasn't been playing well, neither has Nevada, and I think Oklahoma really benefits.
Doesn't Oklahoma play Rhode Island and Texas plays Nevada?
Ah, shoot, you're right. I'm sorry. I meant Rhode Island.
I wasn't trying to correct you.
No. I think you did. You're absolutely right.
I did too. Because I also wanted to pick Oklahoma to possibly beat Rhode Island because
you are right.
You never know. Trae Young and them might put it all together all of a sudden. But I do think Texas beats Nevada.
Yeah. I meant to say Rhode Island. Oklahoma's not playing well. Neither really is Rhode Island. And Oklahoma has the best player on the court. They got more talent, and they have the better head coach on their side. So you never really know. I'm not sure, though, since they've lost, 4 of their last 11 of their last 15 games, so I'm not really sure who I would pick. But yeah, Final Four picks. I'm interested to see who y'all have right now.
I have Tennessee, Michigan, Villanova, and Michigan State. I know those are a lot of high seeds right there, but when I've done a bracket and I look at the things and I like those teams right there. I think a John Beilein team in March has proven. He got to a national championship.
Beilein has to be the most underrated coach in college basketball. He's a very good tournament coach.
Yes. I mean, he showed that when he was here.
Yep.
But
who do you have winning it all right now? Or do you not? Is it too early to say?
I got Sparty. Sparty over Tennessee in my national championship game. I don't think Tennessee's going to actually make the national championship game. But when I did my first bracket, that's what I came out of. I really do like Sparty. I like Michigan State. I like Miles Bridges. I like Jaren Jackson. I hope the Dallas Mavericks get one of those 2 guys because we definitely need one of them. But I think that Michigan State is my favorite going into this tournament.
Michigan State is green. The last 14 national champions have been blue, have had the color blue.
And you know what? I hope it's this navy gold blue.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I hope it's that blue. I definitely don't want to see no Carolina blue. I definitely don't want to see no Blue Devil blue.
Yep, absolutely. James, what about you?
Mine's really boring. My national championship isn't boring. I got Duke, Nova, North Carolina, and Virginia. After hearing you guys talk that much about Virginia, I'm thinking about changing that to Kentucky. I think Kentucky might be able to beat them in the Sweet 16. Or is that the Sweet 16 or Elite 8?
Yeah, it would be Sweet 16.
Yeah. And I got a Duke UNC national championship, though. I think that would be pretty
cool. It'd be cool.
That would be cool.
The national championship. I think there's a half decent shot of that happening.
Yeah.
Duke UNC.
I think I had Duke in a Carolina national championship last year in my bracket.
Okay.
And where did Duke lose at last year?
They lost to South Carolina. They lost early because South Carolina made the Final Four.
South Carolina made that run. Everybody wonders who's going to be this year's South Carolina. I think it'd be New Mexico State would be my pick, but
I don't really know. I don't feel good about it. For right now, I have Cincinnati, Gonzaga. Michigan. Cincinnati, Michigan, Villanova, and Michigan State right now. National championship, I have no idea.
That's the thing, man. This year when it gets to the Final Four, it's a toss-up because Depends on who's playing, because I'd hate for WVU to get to the Final Four and not say they're the favorite to win the national championship, especially if I look at the field, if I look at the other three teams. Because if someone else comes out of Kansas, Michigan State, and Duke's bracket, and it's not named one of those three, and West Virginia's playing them, I'll take West Virginia any day of the week on that. If not, that'd be the biggest heartbreak of a Mountaineer fan I've ever had.
I'd probably, every single time I've picked a bracket, I've always picked a number one seed to win, except Michigan State a few years ago when they lost to Middle Tennessee in the first round. But I'd probably go Michigan and Villanova winning it all.
If Michigan plays Villanova, it's going to be a high-scoring three-point fest, that's for sure.
I think we lost James. He's been frozen for a while.
Yeah, he's got the frozen face, too. Look at it. It's just...
You there? I think I hear him.
I feel like I hear some stuff. I feel like I hear noise coming from his...
James, you there? All right, well, that's pretty much the end of the show. We don't really have anything else. James, unfortunately, has frozen on us. But, Andrew, thanks for coming on. Well, not very long.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was supposed to be you and, like I said, my friend Chaz. I still have not heard from him. No, wait, no, that's James. James texted, said he can hear us. But I have not heard from Chaz since I texted him. So
yeah, me neither.
But yeah, thank you, Andrew. He quit, I guess. Thanks for coming on. I'm sure James would say the same. Let's go Mountaineers in this tournament. Hopefully we can make a run.
Mountaineers.
Absolutely.
Lamont West. Lamont West. Lamont West. Lamont West.
We need him to get hot if we're going to make a run.
Hey, he's our X Factor, baby.
I would agree with that. But thanks for coming on.
Ain't no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yep. All right. So since James has left, let me pull this up so y'all can see me. All right. So not much else left to say. Hang on. All right. So not much else left to say. If James are here, he'd have some words to say, obviously. But we will have another show later in the week, mostly discussing an NFL offseason. A lot of moves have been made so far. We haven't forgot about that. This is mostly just for March Madness. But yeah, we'll be back this week, so see you around.